Kerouac, welcome to the Wknd Sessions.
Hey,
Thank you so much. Dah berapa lama you buat benda ni?
Well, it goes back quite a while. I started in about 2001, kind of. It was back then. I was the whole golden age of this whole digital hardcore thing, Authority and Shire, etc. And sort of discovered it through that in a way. There was so much stuff going on. Empathy.com, especially the golden age of empathy.com. So I got into that, discovered that, and then I started messing around with some software and I didn't know anything. I didn't know how to play any instruments. I didn't know the first thing about notes or whatever. So I just loaded up the software and just started messing around. And I went here and there, started some very, very noisy stuff, and I moved on to a lot of other stuff. I tried my hand at dance music for a while. I gave up. I didn't realize I couldn't do it. But this Kerouac thing, this series of experimental thing, I started in, I think, about late 2008, early 2009. That was the start, basically, of...
Right.
Yeah.
Because you've been in other bands as well, from folk punk to metal to hardcore punk and all that. What got you into it?
Into what?
Into doing Kerouac?
Again, it was that music, and I think I discovered noise in about 07, 06. I couldn't get it right. First time I heard it, I was like, what the hell is this? Tak faham lah, basically. But after a while, it sort of clicked, and I got it in a way.
Yeah.
And then there was one evening, I was because I didn't know how to actually make noise, so to speak. And then one evening I was just playing guitar, and then I left it on my bed, and I had my distortion on, I had my delay on, suddenly started feedbacking, and I was just like, this is nice. So I started playing around the knobs, and I said, yeah, this is interesting, and I started actually reading up on how to do noise, and yeah, I got a few contact microphones. I slowly expanded my pedal collection, and that's basically
okay.
it.
Because noise music, to some people, the term itself is quite an oxymoron. How can it be music if it's noise, right? But yang nyatanya memang ada noise artist di mana-mana saja. How did the term noisician or noise artist ni come about?
To be honest, I'm not very partial to the term noisician. I don't like it that much, but I guess it's a useful description, because we musicians, we don't actually, how should I say, we don't do things the standard way. We take outputs and patch them back into inputs. We use objects, resonant objects. We don't play instruments. So I guess it's a useful term of description. I can't say exactly where the term started, noisician, but yeah, it is there. The idea of noise music. It is an oxymoron, but you could argue that when you can record something, you can produce an album worth of recordings. It becomes music in a way.
Yep.
It is organized sound, even though it might not seem to be musical. You can't hear a riff, you can't hear drum beats, you can't hear notes, but it is organized sound. So you could argue that it is, in a sense, noise music. Yeah.
Okay, interesting. So is it safe to say that it stemmed from a sentiment of challenging conventional music making? For you, at least.
Personally, it was. I don't really think so. I mean, for me personally, I listen to a lot of stuff. I judging by the amount of bands I've spent time in, I listen to everything. And so I find that why I do noise is less that I want to say it's a challenge to music, or saying no, I don't want music. No, it's just that I like the sound. I have a very strong interest in texture in music, texture and tone instead of a musical narrative. I don't want to say, this is a situation and therefore this is what happens. Instead, for me, it's all about the texture, the tone of things, it's the texture, the tone, the fine details, not what it means, but how it sounds like. Yes, that's what I like. Yes.
Okay. Yeah, but it seems quite limitless, right?
Well, that's a very long and philosophical question. I mean, you go back to Sun Ra, said all these free jazz kids aren't really free. They're playing. They're limited by physicality, and it's the same thing. But yeah, in a sense, it is limitless insofar as what you can achieve within the realms of sound. You know, if there's a sound out there you think about, you want to hear, then you can probably put together some equipment to make that sound, whether it be a synthesizer or a feedback loop, something like that. Yeah.
Right. So do you sort of plan what you want to do?
I prefer I lay out my setups. I practice a lot. I practice quite often, but it's not super planned. I don't plan everything out, right? But there are occasionally I do plan phrases or certain sounds, certain tricks that I say, okay, I can do this, but I don't plan when or how. It just, if it feels like, if I suddenly go into it, then yeah, I'll do that.
Nice, okay. And you've also had the opportunity to tour, right?
Yeah,
with this act. Scene noise kat mana yang paling thriving sekali?
I haven't been everywhere, but I was in Indonesia for 2 weeks last year, and it was quite incredible. I did a lot of stuff. I did noise on the streets. I got kicked out by a security guard.
Shit.
And I played shows alongside a lot of hardcore bands, a hip hop band. I played. Yeah, it was super fun. I played in university as well, actually. Yeah, and it was super fun. The kids were super supportive. Amazing turnout. I mean, compared to Malaysia, it was quite remarkable. And I went there again in November for a show, and again quite big turnout. I mean, amazingly large turnout. Yeah, so I think the Indonesian scene is very interesting. A lot of good bands, a lot of good noise bands, a lot of huge crowd, a lot of support. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the kids are also they're exposed to these things more than here, don't you think?
Yeah, I think it's a combination of exposure and also the fact that I noticed over there you don't really pay for shows. A lot of the shows are free, so if you want to give it a chance, just come. And if you can afford to donate, then they will. But it's a free show. Let's give it a go. You know.
Yeah, but in something that's quite again quite free in some ways, why do you think it's not really popular?
Well, it's quite obvious, isn't it? I mean, the sound itself is not to everyone's liking. But I mean, I guess if you play noise, you're not in it really for the popularity. I know that's very easy to say. It's very common. Everyone said it. But yeah, it is. I think it is. If you're doing it, you're doing it because you actually enjoy the sound and the experience of it, rather than thinking, oh, I wish I could be popular. I mean, if you want to be popular, there are a million other styles of music you could.
No, that's not what I mean. But what I mean is just that, like you said, the turn up gigs, budak-budak lagi ramai datang.
Oh yeah. Maybe it's just because exposure and the free aspect, and also I think, I mean, from my experience of the KL scene, it's, I don't know, I don't want to talk down, I mean, say bad things about the people, but there seems to be a lack of interest in trying out new stuff, especially in KL. And the KL scene, it's like, if it's a bit weird, like, oh, no thanks.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah, I think you're right.
I'll watch a band that I'm familiar with.
More conventional setting.
Not necessarily conventional, it's just that something you're familiar with. It can be a punk show, which is not conventional in its own way, but yeah, it can be whatever. The noise scene in KL, especially Malaysia in general, exists on the fringe of the fringe. Personally, I don't really mind that. I think that's fine.
Yeah, that's cool. And you know, we also know some really big-ish or really big noise bands like Merzbow.
Yeah.
And why do you think they are so, if not popular, are so power?
Well, I think it's initially this because of the authoritativeness, as in he is Japanese, he was there, one of the earlier bands, he had time to build a following, you know, tape trading and doing a lot of stuff, he did a lot of stuff, and I think it has a lot to do these days, since the noise scene, it's super underground, but it's very saturated. Anyone can start messing about with noise. It might not be good noise, but you don't have to pick up a guitar how to learn. Just borrow a couple of pedals and give it a go. It's a very saturated scene. So I think these days, especially location plays a big part. If you're in Japan, if you're in some of the American noise hotbeds, there's a chance you can get noticed a lot better than if you're from Malaysia, from other less popular countries, so to speak. So
right. So what is a good noise act to you?
A good, as in names or?
Names, or how do you feel about Young Power?
Well,
How do you gauge that? Macam, okay,
Oh yeah, gauging. Now that is a very thorny question. I've been asked that a million times, but I think it really depends. For me, it depends on what you like. For me, when I talk about noise, I like the texture, I like the tone. So I keep hunting for that, for the bands that have that thing that I like, that very bassy sound, very bassy, very sort of harsh sound. But you can look at it from totally different perspective as well. You know, there are bands that some of the like Facial Mess and stuff, they very precise live, like cut up sounds, very glitchy, and that you could argue that that's more technically capable, as in it's done live and it blows your mind. You know, like, how does he do it without editing? But again, for me, that sound is not what I like all the time. It depends on my mood stuff. So it really depends on what you're looking for in noise and what sort of sound you have in your head is. And yeah, there's probably a band out there that will fulfill that scratcher edge. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Okay, great then. Thank you so much, man.
Thanks.